Good morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are. I'm Paul Clark and welcome to my studio. So, what have I got for you lovely lot today? Well, recently we've been involved in painting some fairly detailed work, so I thought today would loosen up a bit and have a go at painting a 1 hour watercolour with this lovely little loose landscape. So, come and join me and we'll paint this step by step together. Right, here's today's reference. It's by one of my favourite artists, James Fletcher Watson, who paints in this wonderful loose style. Now, I don't want to just simply copy it, so I've changed it around a bit and greatly simplified it, especially if I want to complete this in an hour. Today's materials. My paper is some Bockingford Rough. It's £200, nice and thick, so won't need stretching. Now, it's not a cotton paper, but it's an excellent paper. But as always, any decent watercolour paper will do. My colours today are cobalt blue, yellow ochre, burnt umber, burnt sienna, Payne's grey, Mars black, which is a lovely granulating colour, and for my brushes today a large Harkey, and from my range a 3/4 inch flat, number 12, number 6 round, and of course my trusty number 3 rigger. And here's the pencil drawing, which of course, as always, is free to download from my website. Link in the description below. Off we go! And wetting the complete sky area with clean water using my large Harkey brush. Make sure you don't leave any dry areas or it will show when you put your first wash in. Then using my flat brush, holding it right at the end to allow myself a lot of movement, I'm just dropping in some cobalt blue. Then for a little bit of warmth, just a touch of yellow ochre. And obviously all of this needs to go in very quickly, all wet in wet. Next, I'm after a very warm grey here, so I'm using a combination of Mars black and burnt umber, and letting it all blend into those other colours. Next, a touch of Payne's grey, and I'm painting this all in very loosely with big broad strokes. No fiddling. Now to lift out a few clouds, I'm just dabbing with a tissue. Oh, the sun has just come out and I've got a lovely streak of light across my painting. Never mind. Next, I'm painting in the stream here with a very light wash of cobalt blue. Just lifting out here a little bit of light with a damp brush. Next, I'm randomly painting in some clean water into the riverbanks here, not being precise, just dropping in blobs here and there. And then, still using my flat brush, I'm dropping in this nice watery mix of yellow ochre and burnt sienna. And there's one thing I really liked about Fletcher Watson's original, is this fairly muted palette that the whole painting has. I mean, it's fairly unusual for a landscape like this not to have any green in it, but I think this goldy colour really works. And here, dropping in wet, some burnt umber, just with a little touch of Mars black to give that little bit of granulation. So at this stage, I'm painting both the bank and its reflection in the water. And again dropping in that darker value wet in wet. So this here is a slightly warmer brown, so I'm using a mix of burnt umber and burnt sienna. Now it's always important to remember that when you're painting reflections you have to paint in the opposite angle to make it a convincing reflection. Oh, that's a bit dark. Okay, so now for these background trees here way in the distance. This is just Payne's grey and I'm keeping this wash quite light. Just simple, quick, blobby strokes. And I'm just using some clean water here to soften the top of the edges. It'll just help to throw this tree line even further back. And if you like painting in this quick, loose way, always use the biggest brush you feel confident with. Same colour for the bridge here, and I'm painting very carefully along the top edge here, just making sure I leave that little gap of light. So let's bung a bit of Mars Black in here, should help me give some nice texture and stony effect. And I always forget to paint what we see through the arch in the bridge. And I'm letting that dry, then I'm coming back in wet on dry to put a few details here in the bank. And as before, painting the opposite in the reflection. It's still burnt umber here, but I'm just using a much more concentrated mix. Just quickly dragging my brush here to pick up a little dry brush texture. Wet on dry again, and nice and dark here by adding a touch of cobalt blue into the burnt umber. And I'm looking for two things here, some nice crusty hard edges by using the dry brush technique, but also wet in wet to get some lovely softness. So now we need to let this totally dry, so it's a perfect time for a short break. And how about it? No, sorry, haven't got time, got to finish this in an hour. Next, I'm taking my spray bottle and lightly spraying this area here with clean water, but not saturating it. Then with one stroke, using my number 12 brush, I'm just painting in these main trunks. And the idea here is that soft spray will give the edges of the trunks here a mottly, soft edge, which perhaps will look like ivy growing up the main trunks. And here I've just switched to my number 6 brush. So while I'm waiting for the tree to dry, let's just put that lovely dark shadow underneath the arch. There's a song there somewhere, isn't there? And a few little suggestions of the odd stone and brick. But as I always say, less is more. You don't need to put in every one. That's enough, don't overwork it. Okay, so now my tree is dry, I'm coming back in and continuing these branches using my number 6 brush, always making these branches go to a nice natural taper. And I think it always looks good to have one or two branches coming in the downward direction. Now, I've always thought that trees are wonderful things to paint, and I always enjoy them. And the key to a good branch is just to lift the pressure off the paper as you get towards the end of each one. Next, we're going to be using the dry brush technique, and it's definitely worth practicing this first, just to make sure you get the right consistency of paint. And what I'm trying to do is just to paint the hills of the textured paper, leaving the valleys unpainted. And a piece of tissue is always useful just to take out some of the colour if you need to. And this technique is perfect for suggesting all those tiny little branches and the odd leaf which still remains. But I don't want it to be all the dry brush technique, so I'm dropping in some wet colour just to soften and blur some of the edges. So again, we get a combination of hard edges and soft edges. Now, I do think that sometimes with watercolour we can tend to overthink things and hesitate with our brush strokes. Now, sometimes you need to just be a bit more instinctive and just go for it, and often I find those are the areas that I like the best. Be brave, be bold, and be confident. What's the worst that can happen? And this smaller tree over here I'll treat in exactly the same way, starting here with my number 6 brush. And using the same colour for the odd little bush and sapling. A little more dry brush here with my number 6. Next, I'm taking my trusty number 3 rigger, which is the perfect brush for these spindly branches. And what I'm doing is connecting these dry brush areas up to the main branches, and adding in a few branch details here and there. And the thing to do here is to try and paint these in one quick brush stroke, and it doesn't matter if you leave little gaps here and there. Now with my number 6 brush, I'm just painting in a few little bushes here and there and a few little dark details. This will help just to give a little more contrast with the bridge. And these few little details here will just help to divide up the bank from its reflection. Now for my favourite part, the reflection under the bridge. And again, it's the opposite of what we see above, but I'm putting in lots of nice watery ripple effects. Touch of Payne's Grey here, wet in wet. But I've clearly picked up some browny colours on my brush as well. And Payne's Grey again for the reflection of the tree. And yes, yet again, the angle of these trunks must be the opposite to above. And I'm trying to get lots of horizontal tapered strokes here to suggest those ripples. touch of clean water to soften some of the edges. Always trying to match the same values as I see directly above. Using the same colour again, I'm just going to put a few little grass details on the bank here. It'll just break up that flat line a little. Yeah, that's all looking a little bit obvious, so I'm just going to soften the bottom edge here with some clean water. Next, let's just put a subtle bit of movement in the water with a very pale wash of cobalt blue for some ripples. Keep this nice and light, it doesn't want to look too obvious. Next, this little fence along the top of the bridge, Payne's grey, and just one simple stroke if you can. Don't make it look too obvious. A quick whoosh is always going to make it look more natural. Some of those crossbars aren't even connected up, but that doesn't matter, your eye will just fill it in. Just a couple more stones to create a little more contrast. Just beginning to fiddle now. There we go, all done, and as the video title suggests, all done in under an hour. Hang on a minute, just missed the reflection of the little fence. Now we are finished. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and you'll give it a go. And of course, you don't have to paint it in exactly an hour, but just try and loosen up a little bit with those brush strokes, put a little bit more spontaneity into it. And as I always say, try and enjoy the experience. And in the meantime, please don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already, it is free. Leave a comment, I do read every single one. As you know, I can't always reply to them all. And have a great week everyone, and I'll see you all again next week for another Watercolour Wednesday. Cheers, bye for now. My drink now.